Hi, welcome to Chapter 2 of my user manual. And in this part, I'm going to talk about vulnerability. Vulnerability means opening yourself up to another person, which also means risking being hurt by them. Vulnerability is difficult and it often doesn't come naturally for people. However, it's an essential part of a healthy relationship. Vulnerability builds bonds between us as humans. Brene Brown, who is a famous researcher and storyteller, has a really good quote that I like. She says, "When you shut down vulnerability, you shut down opportunity." And I think that's extremely true. Vulnerability allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, and it can help us feel less alone. It can also lead to developing healthier relationships, which in turn significantly improves our overall well being. It gives us an opportunity to grow as a person and find deeper satisfaction in our relationships. And the value of it is that it fosters an open communication, but also helps cultivate empathy within a relationship. How vulnerability in my life affects me in my life. I'm vulnerable with my partner, who I've been with for 40 years. And had I not been vulnerable, we probably wouldn't be together. Every relationship, friends, partners, husband, wife, anybody starts with you being a little bit vulnerable. You share, it's kind of like ping pong. You share a little bit about yourself and you hope that person shares a little bit. Then it goes back and forth until you start feeling comfortable with that person. I think some of us have been, and well, some of us can understand, like, you've opened yourself up to somebody and they don't do that, and how weird that feels, and no kind of relationship or friendship happens that way. I definitely feel that it plays into my well-being. If I wasn't vulnerable with people, I wouldn't be able to share some details of my life and maybe get help. I would say I'm vulnerable, obviously, with my therapist. That's the purpose of a therapist, is to listen to people being vulnerable and sharing their concerns and what they're going through. It also affects my life as a certified recovery support specialist. I'm vulnerable in the aspect that I share parts of my recovery, my addiction, and also my mental health recovery with my clients. It's actually in my job description, but I do that when it's appropriate to help the client, and I just think that's amazing, and I really don't have a problem doing that. Sometimes I feel I'm a little bit too much vulnerable with sharing some information with people. It kind of goes back and forth. The reason I say that is that I think some people don't see being vulnerable as a way of building a relationship, friendship or anything like that. And everybody's different, but sometimes I do feel I'm a little bit too much in some things I share. I don't think it's wrong. I just think that sometimes I need to step back a bit and think about, like, what I'm saying or maybe what I'm writing. Vulnerability, right now I'm being vulnerable by sharing all this with you, making a video, putting the video on YouTube, sending the link to friends and coworkers to see. That's quite vulnerable right there. Overall, I do think it's the core of every relationship, though. I really do think it's essential and the main thing, because if you don't have that, and family members too, if you don't have it, then the relationship is not going to build. Ways to build it, that's a really good question. I would say just taking small risk and maybe exposing a little bit about yourself that you might not tell somebody all the time, and see how it goes with that person. And if that person doesn't, share a little bit of themselves or have empathy for maybe what you're sharing, then you kind of know that that's not the person to share with. I also would say that I've used vulnerability by going back to school. I went back to school at 58 to become a recovery support specialist. That was a big risk for me, putting myself in a situation that, a lot of younger students, I'm pretty much the oldest student in all of my classes, and that can be a little awkward. But vulnerability takes courage. That definitely takes courage, and I'm glad that even though I feel like I overshare sometimes, I'm glad I do that, because I think not sharing would be worse, because I wouldn't have a lot of the friends that I have right now, and I wouldn't have taken the opportunities to advance like my career and my school.